great video, isn't it? So, you're ahead.
Thanks, Chris. All right, so like Chris said, we're here to talk about finding companies to BreakPoint, which is very catchy. So we put our company name here at BreakPoint. My name is Andrew. This is Zach Myers. We're going to talk about what we like to do during our day job, which is red team pen testing, and we're going to kind of walk through what we can see on these engagements. And it's actually going to be kind of funny because we're on an engagement right now, and every technique we show here was successful in this engagement, so we kind of like use that. We actually had to fly back tonight and keep working. So modern day hacking, I know we all kind of think of it like this, right? We use our black rubber gloves and force to get into the building. Actually, I want to show up to a client site like this one time, just kind of how they react. But anyway, that's the perception, I guess. But we're going to jump in. Here's an agenda. We're going to start out with a quick overview and then jump into what I like to do. We're very passionate about not just scanning with Nessus and then taking it to work. So we're going to talk about how we kind of like to suggest people go beyond using Nessus or any vulnerability scanner, and then dive into each one of these ways at a little deeper level, and end with some final thoughts and tips. So who am I? My name is Andrew. Proud of Twitter handle, and that's that over here. Bear lecturer. We are two of the three members that do the red team at BreakPoint Labs. The other third member is back there doing some creepy stuff with his phone. We're also bloggers and podcasters at Promise Security. We do a monthly blog and podcast, so check us out if you've heard about it. In the past, we've spoken to BSides Charm, as well as BSides DC, and on BSides, I actually ran into somebody from those events here, which I would never would have thought, like come down Mississippi, right? It's crazy. We're certification junkies. We tend to go after like the SAN certs, but also often some security certs because we really like hands-on, which leads to like, we do a lot of capture flag events, like Python, and long walks to the beach. If anybody is in Annapolis, we do like a monthly meetup. It's only 1,000 miles from here, so give it a shot. Down by the water. Appreciate you guys showing. You can make it. I'll buy the first round. So, hacking. Things have changed a lot since the 90s. You see Crash over right here, right? These are now USB keys. But when we look at the movie, they got in with social engineering and weak passwords like God, right? As you can see through our talk, we get in through social engineering and weak passwords. So things haven't changed too much. We'll talk about it a little bit. So a quick overview at a high level. Like I said, the goal here is to break the mindset. Every time I talk to people that either want to get into pen testing, which is feel like everybody in InfoSec, I want to be a pen tester, they have this mentality of like scanning with Nessus or Expose, and I got to take it split, right? That's how you guys do your job. And it tends to be a lot more involved than that, and that's kind of what inspired this talk, and we're going to kind of go over these 5 ways we usually break into stuff, which are right here on the slide. This is our methodology, so you can't just get your hands on the keyboard and start hacking, right? You've got to go through some sort of methodology to present to your customer. They usually want to see this in like the RFP process when you're responding to proposals. So this is what we usually pitch when we do our work, is we do like planning and scoping, basically figuring out what the customer's goals are, figuring out what's in scope, what can we touch, what can't we touch, which kind of builds out the rules of engagement. Then we start doing reconnaissance. We'll show some stuff in here. I'm not going to dive into each of these. Mapping, which is really critical for web applications. Automated testing, which is where you actually are kicking off the scan button on your tools. And then the manual testing, which is where I consider you're actually doing your hacking, you're actually doing all your work. The reporting phase and the remediation support, which is coming back through and making sure they fix the finding and not an instance of the finding. So at a high level, this is how we consider going beyond the scan, right? So when we talk to pen testers, a lot of companies that got pen testing in an automated process, we kind of come behind the scenes and enjoy that because we can find a lot of stuff they may have missed. The first thing I put up here is mindset. That's critical. I learned that when I was doing offensive security training, like as I kept getting into like not getting the boxes, right? I kept failing. As I was actually a DFIR and doing malware analysis, and I wanted to be the red team guy, so I went through the OSCP course and all that good stuff. But what I found was you're going to fail a lot. 1,000 times where you actually are successful. Then the other way to be successful is recon and mapping. So finding the systems that everybody else has missed, or finding the content on that web application that everybody else has missed. That's a really big key point. We'll give an example of that. And then also automated testing. So making sure you're running the right tool for the job. I say that because when we talk to a lot of organizations that are doing vulnerability management, they're doing, they'll run the Nessus, they'll run Web Inspect, or maybe not. But that's it. And maybe they have WordPress servers and using WP scanning. It's a pretty big example of like making sure that you're addressing the technology with the right tool. And then also manual testing, which is usually what I consider we get paid to do as pen testers. We don't get paid to click the scan buttons. Identifying all and understanding all those areas of user input. I think we saw that the previous talk how where all the user input is being leveraged, and then fuzz those areas to see what kind of error messages or different responses you can get out of the technology. Also, you'd be surprised how much you can just get into research and version-specific vulnerabilities, especially with web applications. I don't see that. They do a decent job of finding like XSS fuzzing, but they may not look at the plugin for WordPress or some plugin that is vulnerable, so it may be a manual process for you. And then also combine findings, remove false positives, and abuse features, which is what we're all going to talk about throughout this course here, or the talk here. And finally, highlighting business impact. This is important because when I talk to customers, what I think is a big importance, what I think is crazy and cool and critical, may not be to them. Maybe the client's really sensitive to denial of service, so maybe that medium is now critical to them. So you should understand what impacts their business and highlight it important. So phishing, big surprise, phishing actually works. I show of hands, who's ever done like a phishing engagement in their day job, or maybe click the link themselves, right?
A victim of a
phishing engagement, right? So for those of you that have done it, that's great. We're going to share some of what we do, and hopefully you'll see some similarities. If you haven't done it, we're going to walk through what we do, and maybe you'll be able to recommend that to your organization, because you can do it in a non-destructive way that can help promote security awareness. So even in a routine role, you can maybe pitch phishing. That's fun. So the first is the goals. Figure out what does the customer want to do with the phishing engagement. Do they want to see how many users click the link? Do you want to have it be a means to an end to gather credentials for a pen test, or do we maybe execute some code in the box? All depends on what the customer wants. We want to figure that out and determine the rules of engagement. And then determine the scenario. We like to use two types of scenarios usually. It really comes out of what the customer wants, but we usually pitch to, have an idea of a ransomware attack, or I would consider a common malware attack. And then also more of a targeted attack, right? So somebody that's actually targeting the organization and seeing what they might do. See how the difference in the user respond. Usually we'll see like a 25% success rate on the ransomware attacks, and a much higher success rate when we go to the targeted attacks, because we use these things that clone the site, legitimate usage, all that good stuff. And then determine your phishing domain. So with the ransomware attack, use something that is related to ransomware, which you might see like a bunch of ugly strings, or something that is clearly obviously bad to the user, or maybe it's a little sneakier ransomware like bstracking.com, whatever it might be. We like to look for email spoof vulnerabilities before we do our phishing attempts, because we might be able to leverage those. So again, talk to your customer. We're going to show you how to find some email spoof vulnerabilities. And then execute the engagement. We have a full blog on this here. If you want to go through it to get the word I'm talking, and check the blog out. So planning. Work with your customer, understand their needs. I talked about that. We like to use Python to send the emails. We're big Python users when we do our pen tests. We do 3 types of engagements normally. First is click analysis. We just see how many users click the link. Second is credential gathering, which is one of my favorites, because we need to gather all these credentials. Usually I just send a link to them, and I prompt them to enter credentials, usually like a HTTP basic authentication prompt, where I'll clone one of their forms-based logins, mimic communications from their help desk. And then the last is execute code, leveraging PowerShell, Office macros, HTTPs. Empire's a nice tool for that. So this is the CEO's reaction to opening the phishing email. Immediately regret this decision. Surprisingly enough, CEOs tend to be off the scope list when you're doing phishing engagements. They don't want to look bad, but that's always fun. Phishing scenarios here. So 2 main scenarios I talked about: UPS tracking ransomware on the left, and then we have, I would consider more of the targeted attack, where I've cloned a legitimate site that they leverage. You can use like the social engineering toolkit or manual processes to do that. And I'll maybe add some PHP code to do a forms-based login, or just a simple login from PHP basic authentication. Really whatever most closely matches their legitimate authentication. And as you can see there, that's like I clone our site for phishing BreakPoint Labs employees. The domain is important. So the domain you leverage, maybe the domain the users see. So if you are doing more of a targeted attack, here's an example. We like to leverage like closely matched domains with target company. No big surprise there. An example of that would be like instead of BreakPointLabs.com, lab.com. I probably click on that. If you're doing more of like the targeted the ransomware, you go to ups-tracker.com, that kind of thing. And then you can switch your domains to web content filters and proxies like Bluecode, because if they're using those web content filters, you might get blocked. You'll botch your entire phishing engagement where the domain doesn't actually work outbound, but you obviously have to send an email, so they're flagged. And here's a little slide here, just a quick and dirty way to find some vulnerabilities through email spoofing. Email spoofing, in my experience, is highly successful. So I always like to test for it, and it's in like a 4-step process. Step 1, you find the mail servers. You can do that with a simple host query. Step 2, connect to the mail servers and tell them that cat what have you. Step 3, forge the headers. There's the headers right there in step 3 that the actual email server is going to parse. And step 4, you can try to forge the email headers every type of data. You can actually make an email message that the client's going to see. So like Outlook will see what's in the step 4 box. And you might be able to forge some components of those. Like sometimes you can't forge a step 3 because it gets dropped, but the step 4 headers you can forge. So you got to play around with it. And I usually use my POC for the test.